Thank you for watching this presentation on the overview of the arts, media, and communication industries. The media and communications industry consists of film, print, radio, and television. These segments include movies, TV shows, radio shows, news, music, newspapers, magazines, and books. The radio and television broadcasting industry is composed of two different types of segments. There are public service broadcasters, where the funding is through public money, and commercial broadcasters, which are funded through advertisement spots. Radio and television broadcasters create content for broadcasting, such as communications, news, talk, and other programs. Other types of broadcasters include cable and subscription, or fee-based programs that have a more narrow focus, such as sports, education, and youth-oriented programming. As one of the oldest sectors of the communications industry consists of publishing that produce newspapers, magazines, books, their online versions, mailing lists, software publishing, and even video games. Publishers may publish works originally created by others, for which they have obtained the rights and/or works that they have created in-house. Published works can be in one or more formats, such as traditional print, ebooks, CD-ROM, or proprietary electronic networks. The film industry is mainly composed of large, multinational corporations, major studios, and independent studios. Many of the top-named film companies are part of larger media conglomerates that also include television, cable, newspaper, and magazine organizations. Within the film industry are subsectors: film production, film exhibition, and film post-production. We can still access our media the old-fashioned way, if we choose, by reading publications on paper and watching TV shows on our televisions. But thanks to the internet and growth of digital content, media and communications is now available to us 24/7 through computers, smartphones, tablets, and ebook readers. Wherever we are, whether in an airport, restaurant, at a concert, a doctor's waiting room, we can go online nearly any time to watch TV shows and movies, listen to radio shows, read books and newspaper articles, and more. For as long as mankind has existed, so too has the desire to communicate and share information, which is the core mission of media and communications. In ancient cultures, outdoor festivals, such as those held in Greek amphitheaters, were a primary source of communications. They usually featured songs and plays dedicated to the gods of those civilizations. The performances were meant to educate and inform people, as well as to distract them and prevent uprisings. Other types of communications were chariot races, gladiator fights, beast hunts, and public executions. Today's media is used in much the same way as it is in those early times, to enlighten and influence large populations. And, come to think about it, much of our current television program, for example, reality shows, also focuses on similar themes of competition, survival of the fittest, and exposure and punishment of the corrupt. Printed materials, such as scrolls and letters, date back to ancient civilizations also, but little has survived over the centuries. The first book to be printed in the West was printed in the 1450s. Newspapers and magazines came later, in the 17th and 18th centuries. The roots of radio date to the late 1800s. Many inventors were experimenting with motion picture cameras in the mid to late 1800s. The motion picture industry emerged in the early 1900s and grew quickly throughout the 1900s due to many other inventions and developments. Many of today's major film production studios were established in the 1920s, and movies with sound debuted then also. Inventors were experimenting with electronic television in the late 1920s, but it wasn't until 1939 when the general public actually viewed a telecast. Television gained popularity after World War II in the late 1940s and early 1950s, when the American economy started to thrive again and consumers had more time and money for communications. Television programming expanded in the 50s and 60s to include more in-depth coverage of presidents, politics, and war. In the 1970s and early 1980s, cable networks such as HBO and CNN and Nickelodeon were established. Videocassette recorders in the 1980s enabled viewers to record and watch programs and rent movies at their convenience. And then the internet came along in the 1990s, allowing people to watch TV programs and movies on their computers. High-definition television was also introduced then, transmitting TV signals digitally between computers, the internet, and television. Smartphones and tablets are other recent developments that have given us more options to watch television programs and movies wherever and whenever we choose, and they're altering how the industry works. The digitization of content and ongoing innovations in technology will continue to drive growth and force changes in the media and communications industry. Publishers and broadcasters alike will continue to experiment with new revenue streams, particularly to reap the benefits from digital subscriptions and online advertisements. The publishing industry has experienced a decline in advertising revenue and drop in readership over the past few years, in part due to the recession and also due to the increased availability of free online content. The growth of ebooks is expected to continue, and online publications and services will offer the most opportunities for employment. Broadcast television will continue to experience significant changes as television continues to be more interactive and customized for viewers. In recent years, the decrease to spending led to layoffs and a decline in employment. Reporters and correspondents will have heightened competition in the hunt for work as employment for them. The consolidation of broadcast networks has decreased the need for staff, which means newcomers to the field will face more competition. On the positive side, the growth of internet radio stations may create new opportunities for broadcast professionals. Internet radio stations have lower startup costs than land-based radio stations, and it's relatively cheap for them to identify and reach their target demographic and listening audience. The increased demand for online news and podcasts may also create some new employment opportunities for media and communications workers. The film industry will have moderate growth in the next few years. The public's demand for more movies and television shows and the increasing demand from audiences overseas for American-made movies will heighten the need for producers and directors. Production companies are also experimenting with new methods for content delivery, such as online television, and with mobile devices, which could open up more jobs for producers and directors in the future. More independent films are expected to be made in the next few years, and self-employed producers and directors will directly benefit from this. Film and video operators will experience slower than average job growth. Overall, competition for jobs will continue to be intense, as there are usually more people interested in the broadcasting and motion picture work than there are jobs to fill. The future of the communications industry will continue to be shaped by innovations in technology, adjustments in regulatory policy and social norms, and, more critically, the continued elaboration of demand for information goods and services. Although the structural character of the industry will surely change, there is little doubt that its economic importance will grow in the coming years. From newspapers, television and radio news shows, educational books, documentaries, and reality shows to cartoons, animated films, sitcoms, fiction films, and books, workers in media and communications bring various skills and backgrounds to their jobs. In general, media and communications jobs include reporters, correspondents, and broadcast news analysts, writers and authors, editors, photographers, graphic designers, translators, film and video editors, and camera operators, broadcast and sound engineering technicians, announcers, producers and directors, and performers, from actors to musicians and composers. The workers who are behind the scenes and focused on the business side are public relations people, talent agents and representatives, marketing managers, communications lawyers, and distribution workers, among others. The film industry has two main phases, pre-production and post-production. Pre-production is all of the groundwork that needs to be done before the actual shooting of a film can begin. It includes creating budgets and setting up payroll, casting talent, hiring crews, designing costumes, scouting and contracting locations, and building sets. Pre-production then flows into actual film shooting, known as principal photography or principal shooting. Movies are typically shot in individual scenes, which is the raw footage. It's in post-production when movie-making magic happens. For example, editors weave the usable raw footage into a story, composers add musical backgrounds, special effects teams add the special effects, and sound effects artists add sounds such as doors creaking, footsteps, or gunshots. Post-production also involves audience testing before releasing the movie, promotion and publicity, distribution, and the creation of auxiliary products such as DVDs and soundtracks. Job locations for film workers vary depending on the nature of their work. For instance, pre-production workers, such as scouting agents, spend a great deal of time traveling to various locations, and this can mean national or international travel, whereas storyboard artists work inside in studios. Producers and directors work in offices and on location at shoots. They may have comfortable days inside on sets, or be exposed to a wide variety of elements while on location on city streets, in deserts, jungles, on mountaintops, or at sea. Post-production workers are usually located inside in studios and offices. Television and radio broadcasters create and broadcast original content and/or acquire the right to distribute and broadcast original content. The industry groups, radio, television, cable, and other subscription programming differ from each other by their communication methods and the types of services they provide. The radio and TV broadcasting industry includes organizations that operate broadcasting studios and facilities for over-the-air or satellite delivery of radio and TV programs of communications, news, talk, etc. These organizations are often involved in the production and purchase of programs, and generating revenues from selling airtime to advertisers and from donations, subsidies, and/or the sale of programs. Cable stations and other subscription programming groups operate studios and facilities that broadcast programs that have a more specific focus, known as narrowcast. There are a wide variety of jobs in radio and television, on camera, at the mic, and behind the scenes, including advertising sales agents, broadcast technicians, producers, and directors, on-air personalities such as radio and television announcers, and reporters and correspondents. Broadcast technicians and announcers typically work indoors in radio, TV, or recording studios. Some may work outdoors also, to broadcast programs and news, such as sports announcers covering a football game, or announcers covering an event like New Year's Eve in Times Square. Producers, directors, reporters, and correspondents work in a variety of settings, offices, outdoors, from their homes, and on the road. Producers and directors work in offices as well as outside in all elements or inside studio sets. Reporters and correspondents are usually in offices, but also travel to cover stories and get first-hand interviews. People employed in the publishing industry work for newspapers, magazines, book publishers, journals, periodicals, and other media. They help create and distribute original content or content they have obtained copyright to that informs, educates, and entertains readers. Newspaper publishers report news on current events, such as political events, political personalities, crime, businesses, communications, society, and sports. Many newspapers also include editorial pages that editors write to comment on recent events or topics of discussion and debate, and opinion pieces or op-eds that are written by readers who are unaffiliated with the newspaper. In addition to subscription revenue, newspapers rely on advertisements as resources of income. The work environment for newspaper employees varies depending on the job they hold. Reporters, editors, and photographers work in the newsroom, and out in the field. They travel for meetings and assignments. They may be out of the office for an hour or two to cover a press conference at City Hall, or away for a few days or more to gather information and conduct interviews for a story in another state or country. Magazine publishers distribute magazines and other periodicals in print and electronic form. Magazine employees gather content by assigning and writing articles, editing the writing, creating images and artwork to accompany articles, and selling and preparing advertisements. Book publishers produce books that are specific to their target audience. Traditional or trade book publishers acquire, edit, produce, publish, and sell the books that they are usually sold in brick-and-mortar bookstores as well as online at stores like Amazon. The books they create include mass-market paperbacks, hardcover books, trade books, ebooks, and audiobooks, and they cover a variety of topics and genres. Most creative arts are performed by individuals or groups in front of a live audience. Instrumental music, vocal music, dance, and theater are included in the performing arts industry, and they are an intrinsic part of cultures around the world. Music may be classical or popular. It may stem from a particular culture's history and rituals. It may be instrumental, with an orchestra performing classical pieces, or it may be a band with guitars, drums, and singers, or any combination of instruments and vocalists. Dance may also be classical, such as ballet or modern. There are also religious dances, and dances that celebrate hunting, warfare, harvests, and other aspects of life in earlier times. Theater performances may feature acting, singing, dance, music, puppetry, or pantomime. Many artists contribute to the performing arts, including costume designers, prop designers, theater designers, choreographers, creative directors, and others. The focus of this article is on the performers in the performing arts, actors, dancers, musicians, singers, etc. Musicians and singers perform before live audiences in theaters, concert halls, arenas, and clubs. They also record their performances in recording studios. The type of music they perform depends on their interest and specialty. It may be rock, hip-hop, jazz, classical, opera, or other. Musicians and singers perform solo or in orchestras, choruses, bands, or other types of music groups. They may provide background music for plays. Singers may provide background vocals for lead singers in bands. Musicians and singers perform music that has already been written, and they may also write their own. Dancers express stories and ideas through the movement of their bodies. There are a wide variety of types of dance, from ballet and tango to modern dance, tap, and jazz. Dancers usually perform as part of a performing arts group, such as a ballet troupe or the Rockettes. They perform in front of live audiences in theaters. Some shows are performed in studios for TV broadcast. Casinos, theme parks, and cruise ships also employ dancers, musicians, singers, and other performing artists for shows. Actors portray characters written by writers for theater, film, television, and other performing arts media. They also act in roles for video, radio, and other settings for entertainment and information. Some roles involve dancing, singing, or playing a musical instrument. Actors use speech, gestures, and body movements to interpret serious or comic roles to entertain or educate audiences. They work independently and also as part of casts in shows, sometimes touring the country or traveling to other parts of the world to perform. They may work indoors in theaters or in outdoor venues also. All types of arts date back to ancient Greece, when plays, comedies, dances, religious rites, and other forms of entertainment and education were performed before live audiences in theaters and arenas. The ancient Greeks and Romans were among the first civilizations to produce plays for audiences similar to those performed in the modern world. In 16th century Europe, theater also rose to prominence, due mainly to playwrights such as Shakespeare, whose plays are still being produced 5 centuries later. The first American acting company was established in Williamsburg, Virginia in 1752, and by the early 20th century, new forms of theater, vaudeville and burlesque, were popular. It was also during this time that major theater centers in New York and London were established. Plays that were successful there would tour the country to other major cities for performances. By the 21st century, many large metropolitan areas such as Chicago, Seattle, Los Angeles, Minneapolis, and San Francisco were also considered important theater centers. The growth of nonprofit companies also occurred during the early 21st century as a way of funding for more experimental theater companies or those that wish to produce work outside of the mainstream. Some nonprofit companies formed simply as an alternative business model. Performance arts will continue to offer employment opportunities to skilled artists, designers, producers, directors, stage managers, and musical directors. However, it is important to remember that there are very few stars in the theater. There are always 3 or 4 failures for every one hit. People who aspire to careers in the performing arts should recognize that although the possibilities of success exist and excite the imagination, the possibilities of disappointment are all too real. The performing arts industry in the United States is a $35 billion business. Growth was slow in the industry from 2011 through 2017, with only 1.8% annual growth in that time period due to the sluggish economy and federal and state budget cuts. The outlook is brighter through 2020, however, as the economy is growing stronger and performing arts budgets improve. Dancers will have 5% employment growth through 2024, which is about as fast as the average for all other occupations. Most of the job opportunities will be with smaller dance companies and with companies that hold professional dance competitions. More jobs may also be available with touring dance companies. Opportunities will be best in large cities like New York and Chicago. The DOL predicts that dancers may also find work with theme parks, in television and movies, and as judges in dance competitions. Many people are interested in working as professional dancers and choreographers. However, so competition for most dance jobs will continue to be intense. Dancers who have attended well-known dance schools or conservatories will have an edge in the job market. The U.S. musical groups and artists industry is a $6 billion business. The industry includes musicians, recording artists, and songwriters who perform in front of live audiences and/or in recording studios. Over the years 2011 to 2016, the industry declined by 1%, due mainly to digital sales overtaking album sales and slow recovery of the economy. Attendance at concerts and other live performances dropped as people tightened their budgets. The musical groups and artists industry revenue is expected to increase over the next few years, with consumers' income improving and more people able to spend money on musical entertainment. Employment growth for musicians and singers is expected to be slower than the average 3% through 2024, according to the Department of Labor. Competition for jobs will be fierce. Orchestras, operas, and other musical companies usually have difficulty getting funding, so there is usually minimal employment growth with these types of groups. Nonprofit music organizations may offer more opportunities for work, but during economic recessions, they too face challenges in getting funding. The growth of digital downloads and streaming platforms has made it easier for people to access music recordings and performances. It's also made it easier for musicians and singers to publicize their work, to gain more fans, and boost attendance at their live performances. Actors are expected to have decent employment growth through 2024. Many of the jobs will be in the motion picture industry as demand continues to grow for new movies and television shows. Video on demand and online television is also creating new content, and production companies will need actors for these shows. Slow employment growth is expected for actors who work in performing arts companies, though. More job opportunities will be with large theater companies, which have more stable budgets than those of small and medium-sized theaters. Actors will continue to face intense competition for roles. For stage roles in particular, actors who have a bachelor's degree in theater may have the better chances of landing work than those who don't. For such a large economic product, the theater field employs a small number of people on a full-time basis. Theater and performing arts companies employ just more than 120,000 people as of May 2017. Many people are attracted by the glamour and excitement of the industry, so there is fierce competition for most jobs, especially for those with well-known production companies or theaters. Theater will continue to offer employment opportunities to skilled artists, designers, producers, directors, stage managers, and musical directors. However, it is important to remember that there are very few stars in the theater. There are always 3 or 4 failures for every one hit. People who aspire to careers in the performing arts should recognize that although the possibilities of success exist and excite the imagination, the possibilities of disappointment are all too real. Typically, theater professionals make ends meet by branching out. They find a job here, a job there, in television, film, radio, or the industrial arena. During the summer, they may hope to connect with a stock company at a resort or with musical or dramatic road companies. Dinner theaters, outdoor dramas, cruise ship productions, and similar venues are additional alternatives for theater performers seeking to find work in non-traditional ways. Overall, growth for the most common jobs in the industry will be average or slow. The number of producer and director jobs is expected to be slower than the average through 2024 for those working in small and medium-sized theater companies. Directors and producers will find more opportunities with large production companies or theaters than with their smaller counterparts. This group of workers may also find opportunities with non-profit theaters or by expanding their job search to film and television productions, which is predicted to have faster than average employment growth in the coming years. Online and mobile TV programming is also expected to increase during this time and create more opportunities for these professionals. The number of set designer positions is expected to increase by 7% through 2024. However, the opportunities will depend on the type of employer. Large theaters and production companies are expected to hire fewer full-time designers and instead hire them on a project-by-project or contract basis. Freelance set designers may find better opportunities in this environment. Specialized design firms that offer set design services on a contract basis will also be a source of opportunities for set designers in the theater industry. The expansion of cable and satellite television, the growth of online mobile programming, the growth of the market for direct-to-DVD or video movies, and the demand for syndicated television shows should create employment opportunities outside the theater for actors, directors, producers, costume and set designers, and other support positions. In theater itself, the outlook is mixed, as cultural budgets may be slashed, and many theaters, particularly in the non-profit sector, are unable to survive. Government funding has declined slightly the past few years, but support from contributors, including trustees, foundations, and individuals, has grown. Contributions may continue to grow as the economy strengthens and people have more income to help support theaters. Touring productions of Broadway plays and other large shows are providing new opportunities for actors and directors, and there is a rising foreign demand for American productions, so the outlook is mixed and varied. Small and mid-sized theaters and production groups may continue to struggle for funding and support. Musicians may be instrumentalists or singers performing independently or with bands or orchestras. The musical groups may be small, such as string quartets, or large ensembles, with everything from string and percussion to vocal sections. They may also perform with operas, Broadway productions, dance companies, and other performing arts. Musicians audition for temporary and full-time positions in bands, orchestras, and choirs. They may specialize in one type of music, such as classical or rock, or in a range of styles, including pop, jazz, blues, and more. Depending on their specialty, they perform in theaters, music clubs, or arenas, sometimes traveling to different towns for performances. In larger musical groups, such as orchestras, conductors direct musicians, helping them keep the tempo of the music and instructing them on when to play softly or loudly. Musicians pay attention to the conductor as they interpret written music. There are also songwriters and composers, creating the music and compositions. Many musicians also teach to supplement their incomes. Some teach part-time, while others teach full-time in their own schools or in grade or high schools, colleges, or conservatories. Actors work for commercial theater companies and nonprofit companies. Commercial theater companies, such as Broadway theaters, typically produce large, well-known plays that have proven to be financially successful. Nonprofit theater companies tend to produce more experimental plays. Actors audition for roles by memorizing and reciting lines from scripts. They rehearse with other actors and performers, working closely with directors and producers. Their work environment may be an indoor theater or outdoor venue, such as a theater in a park. They may also perform at festivals, theme parks, and even on cruise ships. Actors' schedules vary depending on the production schedule. When they are cast in a role, the production may last for several weeks or months. Daytime rehearsals can be long and shows are usually in the evenings and on weekends. Actors may also work for companies that tour the country. As in most jobs in the performing arts, actors often supplement their income by holding other jobs. This is especially true for those starting out in the field. Set designers handle all background scenery, props, and stage decorations. To make a set that helps tell the story and establishes time and place, designers must be innovative and creative. A set is created by set painters, stagecraft workers, and other people involved in conceptualizing what will happen behind and around the performers. The lighting designer also draws up plans for how each part of the show will be lit. The general lighting, specific illuminations such as spotlights, and the special effects lighting are all charted, timed, and choreographed to the performance. Sound amplification, sound effects, and recordings are also well plotted before the performance begins. The sound technicians decide where to place equipment, how much to amplify them, and when to switch them on and off. Body microphones, floor microphones, and boom, hanging microphones all allow for emphasizing different sounds. Soundboards that control effects, amplification, and recording are controlled by the technicians during the performance. Prompters follow the script of the performance and cue performers as to the timing of their lines. Prompters are often used in musical productions, where they serve as intermediaries between the orchestra and the performers. Makeup and costuming augment the appearance of the performers and reinforce the mood and story. Even the most basic and simple costumes have been carefully chosen to help tell the story or present the spirit of the piece being performed. Costume directors select and help create the costumes for theater performances. They often work with the director and producer. Costume directors oversee the production of the costumes by designers and seamstresses. Makeup artists apply makeup and other material to the performers. They often create elaborate facial decorations to depict age, scars, or injuries. Theater managers or house managers are responsible for the smooth running of the theater's business functions. They supervise box office cashiers, ticket takers, ushers, and other employees who interact with the audience. They oversee the maintenance of the physical facilities both inside and outside the theater, and they ensure that the theater is clean. Road production managers oversee and coordinate the business and operations of a touring theatrical company. They arrange with local unions and government officials to hire stagehands and secure the proper performance permits. They inspect theaters to make sure that the theater's facilities are appropriate for the production. Theaters with large administrative staff members also may employ managers to handle marketing, public relations, group sales, fundraising, and development. Talent agents represent actors, actresses, or other performers and find them appropriate parts. They often know a wide range of producers, directors, and other people capable of hiring talent. Casting directors assist in selecting the appropriate talent for a performance. They work alongside the producer and director of a production. Producers select plays and scripts to be performed. They raise funds to finance the performance and decide on the size of the production. Directors supervise the production of plays and other performances. They conduct rehearsals and select actors and actresses from auditions. They meet with playwrights or scriptwriters and discuss how to present plays in the most effective manner. They consult with the producer, stage manager, and designers about issues such as scenery and selecting actors. They formulate budgets and schedules. They supervise rehearsals, instructing actors on blocking, stage movement, and the delivery of their parts. They plan how to handle lighting, special effects, and costumes, refining their decisions as the preparations for performance proceed. Throughout the process, stage directors report regularly to the producer on the status of a show, noting any special problems and how closely the show is sticking to the projected budget. Stage managers help run auditions, attend rehearsals, and write down changes to direction during rehearsal so they can be incorporated into the master directing plan. Assistant directors may direct some elements of the performance and focus on particular performers for coaching and training. For musical plays, choreographers create the movements that accompany songs and other music and then teach it to the performers. Playwrights are the authors of plays. Some theater companies stage plays that have been produced elsewhere. For these, they must obtain the rights for the script's publisher and pay royalties based on the number of performances, size of the theater, and ticket prices. Lucky you, as your Career Development Center is a current subscriber to Vault. You will be able to use our database and collection of trusted guidebooks for further insight into these industries and the wide range of professions within. All you need to do is reach out to your career center and ask how to access Vault.